people. And so he would come in, just if I hadn't talked to him in a week or so, and just, hey, Scott, I just want to fill you in. Here's what's going on. And literally it would be 3 minutes, and he'd be gone. But for me, as a supervisor, it was great, because I never had to figure out, wait a minute, what's Tim working on, or what's the status of this thing? I always knew, because Tim would always come with the business. And he always did it in a very cheerful manner. There was never anything about, oh my God, I can't stand this project, I can't stand it. He always liked what he was working on. And so it was a very, very pleasant conversation, and we had many of those conversations about how to do things, what's the best way to approach a problem. And they were very, very enjoyable conversations. The second kind of conversation that we would have focused actually on music. So we would talk a lot about music. I'm sure many of you have seen there's some drums and guitars and bass over there, and I think later on Tim and his son are going to provide some musical entertainment. But Tim and I both have a love for music. Tim, fortunately, is able to play. I just am able to listen. But it lent itself to a lot of fun conversations about, theoretically what makes a good musician, to, hey, this is some music that Sam and I put together. You want to listen to it? And it was always a lot of fun to talk about it and to listen to the music that Tim and Sam were putting together. And again, I enjoyed those conversations a lot. And then the third conversation really focused on Tim's family. He would talk a lot about people in his family and growing up and his relationships with people. He would talk about his brothers, Rick and Gary, and how they're such different personalities, but yet they forged this great friendship over the years. He would talk about his Italian grandmother, who was very close. And Tim and I both have a son that's about the same age, and we were talking a lot about kids, and how proud we are. And then, of course, the person that Tim talked about the most about was his wife, Grace. And it was funny because anytime he talked about her, he would always talk with some kind of superlative, like, I have the greatest marriage ever. I have the best wife you could ever think. And a lot of times when people talk like that, you kind of say, yeah. But in Tim's case, I'm convinced he's 100% right. I really do believe he's got the greatest wife. He's got the best marriage. I think, the people in his life, Grace and Sam and all the other friends and family that you have are very, very fortunate to have you as part of their life. So thank you very much. So now I think the plan was to just kind of open it up before Tim gives his parting shots and allow anybody else to take a shot at him. So if you have any stories, Maureen, you got it? Okay.
Before Maureen starts, the person that's retiring gets to make the last speech. Okay? Just in case Nick Ray has any words, for example, just keep that in mind.
All right, I have a comment, a memory, and a limerick. My comment is, I think I have more pictures of me up here than there are of Tim. I'll start counting. I'm going to count. My memory is, it's not work related per se, but Tim started talking about the fact that there's a place up in Laurel off of Rockbridge Road that has these beautiful wildflowers. And he kept telling me about how beautiful they were. I'm talking 15, 20 years ago. So finally he invited me to go up. So we went up, drove up to Laurel and got out of the car. And I thought, I could use a break. I could use a little exercise, take a little hike. And Tim and I got out, and I looked out, and there's a field of just pretty much green with a little bit of blue and a little bit of yellow thrown in there. But I was still up for a nice exercise. Well, we took one step, and Tim right away reached down and said, "Oh, look at this." And it was a little plant that has a little part there, a little flap, and he opened it up. "This is a jack in the pulpit." "Oh, that's real interesting, Tim." "Great, okay, jack in the pulpit." Took one more step. This, look at this leaf, and he picks it up and he breaks it apart and says, "Smell this." "Oh, it smells horrible." "Oh, that's called skunk cabbage." "Okay, that's good, Tim." One more step. takes a twig or snaps off a little branch off of a bush. This is called, and scrapes it a little bit, this is called a spice bush. Okay, that's really great, Tim. Takes another one step. And you can see where I'm going with this. And the bluebells and everything else. And I do remember them. He quizzed me on them. Well, we had been out there for about an hour, and I turned around. We walked 30 feet. 30 feet. But I have to tell you, when I walked back to the car, that whole 30 feet, I looked back at that same patch that I had originally just said just looks like a bunch of, a little bit green with a little color thrown in. It was a whole lot, I looked at it a whole lot differently. It was full of a lot of special plants that could be identified and all had a name and a special meaning. And I thank you so much. Anybody that knows Tim knows he loves the outdoors, and I'm so thankful that he shared that with me. And we did it a couple of years. I don't know exactly why it fell through the cracks and we didn't do that, but well, now you have all the time in the world, you can do it again. And so finally, I am somewhat famous for limericks, so I can't let an event go by without a limerick to Tim O'Ray. Tim O'Ray, and actually there's a reference here, he was on the Irish Setters volleyball team. So everybody had an O or a Mick prior to their so anyway, so here it goes. Tim, I have known you for 30 great years. We've had laughter, good time, and some tears. Launched spacecraft together, like birds of a feather, with such talented, bright engineers. Your legend, it's plain to see, is coding up CFDP. How much code did you fly, on which NASA relies, dates way back to HST. Athletic in so many ways, Irish Setters named you Tim O'Ray. Fans watched you in awe when you spiked the ball. With pride off the court, you sashayed. Oh. On Mondays, with whom will I chow? I guess through my work I will plow. No Chinese buffets, no detour delays. Recall frequent lunch dates you did vow. Alas, there's bad news to confess. Your retirement approval's a mess. It's been put on a hold. CMMI non-compliance, I'm told. Maybe next time you'll follow the process.